Most people that I know in the industry did not go directly from high school or directly through, a secondary program for brewing. They had an industry before. So kind of what was your path into the brewing industry?
Well, in my past life, I was a rocket scientist. I was an aerospace engineer for 12 years before I got into professional brewing. But brewing was something that I did in college from the beginning. I went to school in Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara in the mid 90s. And there was so much craft beer around me from the very beginning. I was interested in it. I was in love with it. And it was my fall quarter, my freshman year, that one of my classmates mentioned that he homebrewed. I thought that was pretty interesting. So when I came home for the winter break, this is after my fall quarter, my freshman year, I mentioned homebrewing to my parents, and they said, "Oh, well, there's a store, a winemaking, beer making store in Berkeley, just north of where I grew up in Berkeley, California." I grew up in Oakland, and Berkeley is this next city north.
Sure.
And a store called the Oak Barrel, and they took me there and they bought me a homebrew kit. And
Nice.
the guy working behind the counter, his name was Homer Smith, and I think he's still there.
Yeah.
So
I know the name.
yeah. I think Homer helped hook up Roger Davis. I think Sean O'Sullivan, and I, the guy is he also never forgets a face too. Like, I hadn't seen him in many years, and like every time I've run into the guy, even if there were 5 or 10 years in between when I last saw him, he remembers my face, remembers my name, remembers the times that I came into Oak Barrel. And that's where I started homebrewing in 1996. And I was hooked, but it wasn't something I got into professionally until really we opened Beachwood.
What do you think how long were you doing the engineering side of things?
12 years. So I did that from 2000 to 2012 with a year of crossover. The first year that we were open at Beachwood in downtown Long Beach, I was still working my engineering job full time and then doing everything at that little brew pub too for the first year.
Before I got into professional brewing, I taught at-risk kids for 10 years, and
Oh, wow.
I felt good. How do I want to say it? I felt good with the fact that I still had something in the tank for it. Unfortunately, I think we've all had, either teachers or managers or bosses that have just done it for too long. And they needed to get out sooner. I was always glad that I didn't hit that point. And I hesitate to say that a little bit because people are like, well, it was only 10 years, but they were pretty intense. It was a pretty intense 10 years. You know what I mean? And it's a little bit, we joke around, it's a little bit like teaching in dog years, but I still had a love for it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I had this pro side opportunity pop up. And so I ended up taking a sabbatical because theoretically that was going to allow me to work in the brewery for a year and then decide what I wanted to do. Right. Well, you and I both know that construction never happened on time. And I actually had to tell them that I was not returning until and the brewery wasn't even open yet. So
Right.
Anyhow, so for you in the engineering field, did you feel like that was something that you were tapping out on from a passion standpoint and just wanted to move on to something else, or did the passion for the brewing industry outweigh the other?
Well, it was a little bit more of the latter. I wasn't burned out on engineering at all. In fact, people ask me, "Do you miss it?" And I get to do it every day because there's so many things, especially in a production facility. There are mechanical processes that are driven by the fundamentals of engineering. And there are so many things that I've worked on and installed and do in the brewery all the time that are related to my engineering. But yes, my passion for brewing was a huge driving factor, but I think more than that, the ability to own my own business, and even bigger than that, the ability to have creative autonomy, to be able to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, without any kind of real limitations, is incredibly fueling for creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I've almost never found anything that has allowed me to be more creative than owning my own business. And, you know, if I can really do anything that I want. If I want to brew a particular beer, ultimately I'm the one who decides whether or not to do that and what ingredients we're going to use, what style we're going to make. My sales team might hate me for brewing, 100 barrels of ancient brew it, but if I really wanted to do it, I could do it. So if you think about it, you know, if somebody were to say to you, what would you brew today if you could brew anything?
Yeah.
Your creative juices would start flowing a lot more efficiently, I think. So that's ultimately what drives me, is having creative autonomy.